The reason why this panel is important is, I think Aparna referred to the fact that there is a trusteeship, there is a vision at the top, and then there are custodians of that trust and that vision who have to then execute. And one of the verticals of good execution has been CSR for the last 10 years. It's become more and more important. It's become more and more controlled, and also has increasingly demonstrated the power of doing good as well as disrupting. So all my colleagues here, I've been having the pleasure of watching them grow their work as well as them, their own journey of coming into their roles. So it's a pleasure to be able to talk to all of you here today. So welcome. And we'll keep this crisp, and all of you are great speakers, so I'm not worried about this at all. So I'll just begin with, and let me just begin with maybe forum, right? There's lots of initiatives that you are like managing. Is there the fact that there is an active board and the board has a vision, then there are these organizations that are doing their own thing and are very community centric. How do you as someone who is in the middle managing CSR able to manage the balance between that vision and the execution that goes on?
Lovely, thank you, Nagma. Such a joy being in this august community of people who've been doing good work over the long term. So long term is the answer. So the board typically of an evolved organization like Tata's, we are very lucky to have those kind of boards which are committed to see real work, real outcomes, real transformation. So it is, I have an easier job than some others, I must be grateful. But what we typically do is to outline a longer term perspective and to build milestones, like someone beautifully said, beyond numbers. So CSR is notorious, and I must own it up, is notorious for trying to numberize human impact in very narrow ways. So there are ways to build milestones, which for example would be that you would work with so many capacity buildings, or you would qualitative goals that you build in. Board typically would like to see how you are tracking your own outline of work. Nobody asks you for numbers only. So to build that right frame, and I think Aparna was mentioning how we need to measure at the strategy framework itself in a collaborative way. We do that one, and then to take the intelligence back to the boardroom and try not to be popular at either of the places. That is the way the balance gets struck. We are the bridge builders, and we cannot love any side more than the other.
Thank you. And then let me go to Mabel with the next question, which is, I think L&T also has, along with a great active board and some really cool NGOs, you also are partnering with government. There is a lot of work with aspirational districts. Aspirational districts are those districts, for those who are not initiated on it, who are more back and beyond, more backward than the others in this country, and there is a focused intervention that the government has outlined has to be done with them. And some corporates have taken the mantle and are leading the way and executing good programs there. So when there is a third stakeholder, which is the government, that has already also outlined benchmarks, how does that's like an additional level of responsibility. How does that get managed, and how do you do it in L&T?
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. One of the key things is to leverage, and government is one of the greatest enablers, because there's so much of work to be done in this country that no one can do it alone, however big the corporate or any of the stakeholders may be. When it comes to our work, we have a portfolio-driven approach. There are some projects where we collaborate very actively with the government, and the fact of the matter is, what more can you add in terms of value? What more can you add in terms of outcomes and impacts? And who's the best to kind of deliver that? So if that comes from the government, then we kind of collaborate there. The other part of it is also the fact that being a company with a pan-India presence, there's a lot of expectation from very hyper-local stakeholders. And we need to meet that too. without the efforts kind of getting diluted. So we stick to our core expertise in terms of what we know best and what we can deliver. So that could be small infrastructure projects there. But in the bigger flagships, the flagship projects like rural development, water, health, or even STEM for that matter, we would look at more deeper engagements. We would look more at collaborative work. We look at people and partnerships that will really enhance and give more bang for the buck.
Rishi, if this comes as a question to you, with these values and principles, one is this also the way you follow? Second, in the scheme of things that you support, is there a favorite, or is there something that resonates very closely with the board and you are incredibly proud of, and what are the 2-3 things about it that make it top of the list for you?
First of all, I think it's my privilege to be discussing in a forum where it's nicely balanced, if I can say that. I've been in this sector for almost 25 years, a lot of old friends. We are talking about diversity and inclusion. This is the first time I've seen that. So thanks to Anas and team for bringing me with this forum. Thank you so much. Replying to what you asked, I think when you have a good level of maturity with the board, the implementer, and the management, I think you really don't have that kind of a challenge because everyone is working at creating an impact. So at UPL, I think starting with the promoter family, then the management, and we as an implementer, I think we have a very good alignment because I've been doing for almost 50 years. So not much of a challenge. I think it's more of a how do you really drive things and build up that common understanding between all of us. And what I've learned in last 25 years, it's very important that you have that alignment also, a common understanding also, because then only you are able to create an impact and deliver better social return on investment. So that's my take.
So all of you are being really nice. So I'm going to be a little wicked here. Like, this is sounding like a dream job with everything going fine, and everybody's loving and trusting, and hum saath saath hai. And life is more complex in our sector than this. So Matilda, yes, Matilda, I'm coming to you with that.
Oh my God.
This is, and I actually hold it very proudly, that this is a sector where we go with best intentions and the best laid plans, and you can get surprised in one day or a year or after 10 years.
Yes.
And because it is human, and human complexities are surprising. So while, yes, of course, the bedrock of every good, structure is trust, what does one do when things fall apart? Yeah. As everyone else must face sometime or the other. Otherwise, yes, we're not doing our jobs well.
Yes.
So what does one do then?
So, we had this very audacious project, Reverse Development Impact Bond in the space of education, the first of its kind with CSR investment. And unfortunately, COVID happened, right? And as part of the Development Impact Bond or pay for outcome, as you all know, you pay for the outcomes. But I think that's where collaboration and partnership works, because you get different stakeholders who come with different strength, right? We had Central Square Foundation, which came in with the pilot which they had conducted at one particular district. And then we had Language Learning Foundation and the founder who is an IAS, ex-IAS. And then we had the corporate and we had SBI Foundation. So we immediately huddled up during that time and we said, how do we now ensure that the outcomes are being met? We knew that it was difficult because the first thing that got impacted during COVID was schools, right? The schools were totally shut down. And then, of course, with the digital reach, we put in overnight an app in place. We started pushing content. So there are no answers or right or wrong answers, right? How do you basically all come together and try to then find a solution playing to the strength of each of the stakeholders? Because the complexity is, the magnitude of the complexity is too huge, right, for each individual to solve the problem. So I think we need to work together, respect what the implementing partners get to the table, the community wisdom which is there, and of course get technology, innovation, and speed is very important, right, to address a problem. You can't just sit on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, please, please. And you too.
Yeah,
Yes. You're on board.
because you're provoked, so I need to reply to that. I don't think we meant by saying that it's a perfectly hum saath saath hai kind of a mode. We definitely have that disagreement. See, I'll give you an example of COVID. So when COVID happened, there was 3 approaches that happened. One was at an operational level. My take was that we have to immediately work on relief, which I did also. So whether it's people returning back to their houses, so how we can really help that. At a very high level, board level, because company has a global presence, the first was how do you bring in PPs from China and other countries wherever it's possible. The management and technical team, I don't know if many people know in this house, UPL was the first to make the oxygen plant through reverse engineering. So we did that, and we started educating others how you can convert your existing plant into an oxygen plant, because that was needed in the second phase. First phase, technical team immediately went to the drawing board and came out with a hand sanitizer in 24 hours, because it's a chemical company, so we have that expertise. But when you look at it a holistic perspective, there's an alignment. Everyone is working, but there's a solid disagreement. How do you really work on the issue which has come up all of a sudden? So there are issues, but because your common DNA is same, issue is only at an operational level. How do you really take forward?
So just like to add a little bit to what Rishi is saying, and take this beyond a natural disaster like, COVID, earthquake. Even in the normal course of operations, the best laid projects can go wrong. You have a vision. Sometimes things fall short of that. And that is something which is part of everyday work. So just like in business, you have a risk mitigation plan, you need to build also elements of that into your development sector projects. And I think what's key here is a lot of patience, a lot of faith, both in your partner, in the community, and your own organization's vision and ideals. And once you have that, you're able to kind of ride the storm. There have been instances, where we've had to take tough stands with respect to the community. You need to bite the bullet when you have to, or even with stakeholders with vested interests. And I think talking about these things more openly, is the process to building more collaboration, so that it's not roses and unicorns everywhere.
No, this was very important because I think in the whole narrative of how social change happens, but we see the leaders and the generosity of the givers, and we see the organizations work, but actually this is the workforce, and these are the leaders who are making sure these steps make it to final destination. And this story almost never gets told. So it's also very important to understand that this role that is there, the CSR heads and the people who are trusted with these decisions, are managing complexities with very powerful stakeholders to ensure the final mile is reached. So that's why it was important to also spotlight, and I'm delighted by how you all have shared. We do have limited time, but I would also say, so if there was one such instance where I would say some remarkable achievements have been achieved, but that's happened really because of the faith that your leadership or a stakeholder has shown. Each one of you, if you can share such one incident, it would be fantastic. Anyone can go first.
Diversity.
That is a comment or a compliment? I think when you work on a few sectors which are not very common, like when we started Nature Conservation Initiative, specifically working on species conservation, I think I was very excited to learn that Dinesh sir is also working on that. I think it really requires a long commitment and a patience, because it's It's not that easy. But once you are aligned and you achieve that result, which we were able to do with 2 species, one was Saras and now we have started working on vulture, I think the whole excitement became multi-layered. So I think that's something that I'm really happy and proud of sharing with, because it's not easy to sell the idea of species conservation to all the stakeholders when you're working. Education comes by default to everyone. So livelihood comes by default to everyone. Now, gender diversity, I think it comes by default to everyone. But working for species, it's a challenge, but more satisfying.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so when sports was actually included in the Schedule 7, we just jumped on board because, as a banker, it gets so competitive in office, and we really need to inculcate a lot of sportsman spirit at work. And we really started looking at sports from the inclusion lens. And we said that, in a country like India where focuses a lot on cricket, why don't we look at para-athletes? Why don't we look at blind cricket? And these are all patient capital. You are investing in an athlete, and even if you're looking at something like an Olympics or a Paralympics, it is at least 8 years of consistent support. And its support is just not on, training. It's on nutrition. It is on sports science. It's on exposure visits internationally, right? And we were pleasantly surprised that we could win laurels for the country when in the last Tokyo Paralympics, out of the entire 19 medal tally for India, 8 medal tallies were from the athletes that we have been supporting. So, and that's one part of, bringing laurels for the country, but it changed the ecosystem. The organization Go Sports that we've been supporting, after this, the ecosystem saw the value, every other organization from Infosys to Hyundai started supporting para-athletes in India. So I think that's one, great intervention that we are proud of. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll also bring in the board. So our board was very keen to support autism as a kind of an inclusion of autistic individuals, look at least, especially the remoter regions, given that our presence is across 100 remote regions of the country, especially more so with renewables now. And the mandate was start working with few people who are experts. Now that is the straightforward mandate. And to go back to the systems thinking, one as a CSR professional over years knows that there are enough and more great NGOs in the country serving this cause for decades now, doing good work in a hyper-local format. Now this hyper-local format is not going to yield you any multiplier value, nor is it going to allow you to go to probably all the regions you must go to, the underserved regions. So we kind of worked with several partners, and it took 2 years to convince several partners, including our board, that we are not going to have beneficiaries immediately. We are going to work with goals which are, say, I work with the government to build a kind of a platform which allows for Anganwadi workers to do first level referral. Work with the normal people as much as you work with the differently abled people. Look at what the government is already doing and add value there. Look at so many NGOs and try and bring them on one directory in the country, because the government has another directory, the NGOs have another, and innovators have another. So how do you bring everybody together? But it took time, it took courage, it took a lot of understanding that this is the real problem on the ground. If you're solving for real stuff, eventually everyone relates. If you're solving for imaginary stuff, which is your own passion or imagination alone, then it is very difficult to get everyone else to corroborate and to add force. But we realized that we will need a platform for this. We'll need a phygital platform. Interestingly, our chairperson has written a beautiful book called The Bridgital Nation, which also talks about connecting human networks which are already doing good work together, and which is a need of the time. We also got global ideas. It sells beautifully sometimes across from boardrooms to going down to the ground, to say that several countries have one country platforms. Why does our country not have a one country platform? So Sham Dam Dand Bhed. Everything together if you are fighting for the right cause.
So how do you choose between your children and say, this one is your favorite, or this one's the one that you're most proud of? But one of the interventions which are more recent was, when I say recent, I mean about 7 years back, because we have had a long history of certain trust areas where we've been working in. And that intervention is our work with rural communities on water. And when we started about 7 to 8 years back, it was right from the drawing board, trying to think of, how do we intervene, how do we collaborate with communities, what could be the outcomes. And after about 8 years of work, and we were not even sure what would be, the impacts that we're generating. But when we have been able to exit certain communities and we look back at them, and see that they're thriving and doing even better, that kind of gives a great sense of satisfaction. I just want to narrate, a small example of something that happened just last week. So we have this community in Tamil Nadu. We've worked on a watershed approach in a place called Chettipalayam, and we exited that community about 3 years back. So we got to know that one of the structures, a small check dam that we built, someone has gone and repaired it or painted it or something like that. And we were a little taken aback because these structures are built to last for about 15 to 20 years. So there was a little alarm in terms of, has it collapsed? Is there something wrong? Is it not strong enough and all that? So when we went back and checked, we realized the local farmer group decided that this is a structure that is helping them a lot. It's creating considerable wealth for their farmlands. So why don't we we have a little extra money, we'll desilt it, we'll paint it up, and we'll make it look even more beautiful. So for me, that was a defining moment, because whether that structure needed painting or not is a different thing altogether, but that is such an asset, and that's how they continue to invest in it. So that was really, really very, very affirmative for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your candor. Thank you for stepping out and owning all the parts of what you do. And it's been great talking to you. It is, like I said, it was very important to have these wonderful people here share a little bit about how this works out in real life. And thank you for the generosity of your sharing. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. And I hope you enjoyed the conversations. Thank you.